because, even today I get embarrassed when people go, "You're Lee Priest, you this, you that." I'm like, "Look, I'm just Lee. I'm a fucking idiot. I'm no different to anybody else." Yeah, yeah, I was a pro bodybuilder, but hey, if you're a plumber, you're a great plumber. You're good at that. I was good at lifting weights. Doesn't make me better than you. That's why I hated people with egos, no matter what it was, any sport, movie actors, anything, because we're all the same. Just because you might be famous or have money doesn't make you better than anybody else. So when I did turn pro, I still hated competing because, me, I liked eating. I just liked being fat, lifting heavy weights. So a lot of the contracts were you had to compete 2 or 3 times a year to keep your contracts. So the main reason I competed was to keep my contracts and that. But the good thing about competing was because I like the fans and that the most, they're the main reason I did it. I get to go to the contest, you get to go to the expos and meet the fans. So as much as I hated the competing, meeting the fans was the good part of it all.
Welcome to Muscle TV, and today we have a very special guest, the man who is the GOAT of Australian bodybuilding, Lee Priest. I am joined once again by my good mate and fellow host, Scotty Goebel. Welcome, Scotty.
Thank you, Luke. It's good to be here and very excited about our guest today.
Once again, we have a very, very special guest, a man who turned pro at 20 years of age. He won 3 IFBB titles, the 2002 San Francisco Pro, the 2005 Australian Grand Prix, 2006 Ironman Pro. He got 6th in the Mr. Olympia 3 times. He's known as the Giant Killer, who also threw in a 2013 NABBA Mr. Universe overall win. And in 1997, he beat the man himself, Ronnie Coleman. Lee Priest, thanks for coming on Muscle Radio, mate.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Yes. Well, that first Olympia was a 5th place, remember, but then they changed it after the show. So
They did.
we
And
still don't know what happened there.
There's been plenty of controversy throughout your career, and it'll be great to get into it all. One thing I've got to say, Lee, just going back to the early days, mate, starting from the beginner, when you're a beginner, I have never seen a teenage physique like yours, and I've always wanted to ask you, mate, when you were that age and you were looking like you did, like, what were you thinking back then? Because it's one of the craziest physiques ever, let alone on a teenage or even a 20-year-old.
I never thought about it because, like, when I got into it, I used to just watch the He-Man cartoon, the $6 Million Man. So I always liked people that could do things that was strong, even though $6 Million Man was fake. He could still lift up heavy things and jump high and that sort of thing. But then He-Man come on TV and I'm like, I want to look like He-Man. A lot of guys today, like, I want to be pro, I want to be in the Olympia. I'm like, well, slow down. Fuck it. You got to do an amateur show first and, get your feet wet. So I was never like that. I just wanted to look like He-Man. And, as I started training at 12 and 13, I think the WPF then had a schoolboys division, 18 years and under. And some guy said, you should compete. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to go on stage. Because before that, I went to magic school and used to do magic, and I used to get embarrassed to go on stage because I didn't like people looking at me. So when I said I was going to compete, my mum's like, oh, yeah, you're going to go on stage in little posing trunks and have people look at you. I said, I'll give it a go. And at the age of 13, I won 3 contests and stuff, and it went from there. But even then, I never really liked the competing. I just loved training. And even when I got to America and did turn pro, I still wasn't like, oh, I'm a pro bodybuilder because, even today I get embarrassed when people go, "You're Lee Priest, you this, you that." I'm like, "Look, I'm just Lee. I'm a fucking idiot. I'm no different to anybody else." Yeah, I was a pro bodybuilder, but hey, if you're a plumber, you're a great plumber. You're good at that. I was good at lifting weights. Doesn't make me better than you. That's why I hated people with egos, no matter what it was, any sport, movie actors, anything, because we're all the same. Just because you might be famous or have money doesn't make you better than anybody else. So when I did turn pro, I still hated competing because, me, I liked eating. I just liked being fat, lifting heavy weights. So a lot of the contracts were you had to compete 2 or 3 times a year to keep your contracts. So the main reason I competed was to keep my contracts and that. But the good thing about competing was because I like the fans and that the most, they're the main reason I did it. I get to go to the contest, you get to go to the expos and meet the fans. So as much as I hated the competing, meeting the fans was the good part of it all.
Yeah, and the thing was, Lee, I mean, like you said, you started at 12, so you were, training for quite a number of years before you turned 20. But still, at that young age, to be receiving that much of attention, it must have been a little bit disorientating, the attention you got for your physique being so young.
Yeah, I didn't like it though. I always covered up, and even like now, even when I was getting ready for contests, the only time I do it, wear a tank top in a gym or take my shirt off was for a photo shoot. And a few times the photographers hated me because if the gym was busy, I'd be like, I'm not taking my shirt off. They're like, you have to for the photo shoot. I'm like, then organize it for an early time in the morning when no one's here, because I just never like being looked at. And, people go, if I look like you, I'd be shirtless all the time, or I'd have a sleeveless top on. And, it's funny because when I was married to another lady that had kids, I'd take them to the beach, but we'd go down the far end where people weren't around, or we'd go to a kiddies pool. And this was like when I was getting ready for the universe, and I'd be in shape. No one's there. So I'd go in the water, and all of a sudden people turn up. I stay in the water like, you're going to get out. I'm like, there's too many people. So I'd stay in the water, or that the kids would cry some days because I'd go take them to the beach. It was too busy. I'm like, we're going home. They're like, what's wrong? I said, there's too many people. So I take the kids home and they'll all be crying in the car. So,
Lee, it must have been fairly apparent early on in your competitive career that you were destined for greater things than most. I mean, what was it? You were about 17, 18 years of age when you were representing Australia at the World Championships and on the brink of turning pro there, because there wasn't really a clear pathway within Australia. So you must have... Did you actually seek out professional status? Because I know in the end it was almost handed to you, but you got very close to those world titles.
no, I said my first, like I said, I won the Mr. Australian, the WPF, and then they sent me over to the AAU Mr. Universe in Arizona, run by Carlos Rodriguez and Marlon Darton back then. And that's when I was 17. I got runner up in my universe at 17 after I won the overall. And then 18, I went to the IFBB and won my class there, and went to the Worlds when I was 18 and got fourth. And then I went to Russia, and that whole debacle when I went back to Russia as a lightweight still. And we did our drug testing here, was clean. Went to Russia, did the drug test, Andre Barrows, and that was in. Now, Andre joked around, he's like, do you want me to pee in it for you? I'm like, I'm okay. I haven't taken anything. I'm still a bloody lightweight, for God's sake. So did the show. I think I was the first day we did the drug test. Then that night they have that World Congress meeting, and anyone that's found positive, they get told, competitors positive, they can't compete. Mine was fine, wasn't positive. Did the pre-judging, did everything after pre-judging. Everyone's like, hey, Lee, our judges have you first. You're going to win. I'm like, oh, that's nice to hear. But until I get that trophy in my hand, I don't believe anything. So come the finals, I'm just about to walk out for the finals. I still remember it. Dr. Bob Goldman goes, I'm like, what? He goes, you just come up positive. I'm like, for what? I said, I haven't used anything. And he said the name. I couldn't even remember what the name was. So they wouldn't let me go out. I said, this is how I feel bad. Like, I know how you see guys in jail going, I'm innocent, I'm innocent. You're like, oh, bullshit, whatever. So I'm like, shit, but I haven't taken anything. People are like, sure, you're a bodybuilder. So come home. My mum calls up the Australian Institute of Sport and says, look, my son came up positive over there after you tested him. How could this be? They're like, that shouldn't happen. He was negative here. So they wanted to retest me. My mum was going to pay, I think it's like $347 back then for the test. But because I was part of the IFBB, we had to get their permission. So Paul Graham said, no, don't test him again. So they wouldn't test me again. And the B sample, they lost the B sample. So
Did you mysteriously lose to a Russian that day, Lee?
no, I actually lost the Carlos someone. Well, he was one of the top American guys, and he was retiring. It was his last show.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's a lot of travel, Lee, at that age. How were you doing all that international travel back then?
It wasn't bad. All I remember was coming home on the plane. For some reason, Ron Zamiki and I got bumped up into business class and that. And they're like, oh, where you been? And we're like, I've been to the world titles. I'm the stewardess is like, oh, that's good. How'd you do? I said, I won. And she goes down the back of the plane, and Paul Graham must have been down there and got all pissed. And she comes back and goes, the guy down the back of the plane, older gentleman, says you didn't win. And then I said, oh, you tell him to shut up. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And even being that young, we got back to the airport. I can't remember what it was. It was some early hour of the morning. And they just left me at the airport. So I had to wait there till the next day till I could get home. So, so pretty much from the early days. And that's when I was 19. Like, and then, like I said, it was almost like if you ever see those Carl Hensel photos of me in the Australian bush when I'm 19, like I sort of real set up those nice classical lines. But then if you look at me when I'm 19, just before I turned 20, when I got on the gear, you can see when I got on the gear. So I put on 20 pounds in 8 weeks, and you can see the difference. And that's when Lou Zwick from ESPN wanted me to go over and do the amateur Niagara Falls show. And when I went over there, I was in the gym, and Jim Mannion saw me, and that contacted Wayne Demis. I've got a guy from Australia. He's won his class and that in the IFBB and that. if you had been, he would have a pro card. So they gave me a pro card. And even then I'm like, no, I got a pro card. Big deal. But I never sought out to get one, never really wanted one. Like I said, I just loved the training side. The competing, I did, like I said, mainly just for the friends and family that who wanted me to. But I never had a passion once saying I want to be a pro. So, and once I did get the pro card, then the contracts came, then I had to compete. So,
Did you travel as a team back then? Because there's not much of a team scene these days with
yeah,
bodybuilding. Everyone just goes off on their own. And
yeah.
how much fun was it traveling with Paul Graham?
Oh, well, Paul, he was a bit of a dick, but Ron Zamicki was fun. And we had Leon Sidoti at the time. And when we first went to Malaysia when I was 18, it was Leon Sidoti, me. I think Lou Barry, sadly, I think Lou Barry's passed away now, and that he
Yeah.
was fun. I think Peter Wall come over there. Mick Scionti, he's always a crazy bastard.
Yeah.
That was fun. Even when the show was over, I remember, Gary Ross, because Gary Ross was there, and he's always into fitness and that, and those little bikes, the trike bikes, you can put people in the back. He asked one of the guys from who was there, like a guy that does it for a living, can I just borrow your bike? So he's like, Lee, get in the back. He goes, I'm just going around the block. And Gary, because he's into fitness, we went for like 5 hours. And we finally come back, and the poor guy's sitting in the gutter. He's like, can I have my bike back now? Gary's like, sure. Yeah, that was fun. Traveling as a team was fun that back then, but it's like as it goes. But then things all change, and then I became the bad boy for speaking out against the IFBB just because of the way athletes were treated and that. And like I said before the show started, I said, if this was an IFBB show 10 years ago, I wouldn't be on, because once I started speaking out, I had friends that were competing in the IFBB, and when I was suspended, the Grahams wouldn't even let me into a contest to watch my friends. I couldn't go to an expo. Tony wouldn't let me go to an expo, wouldn't let me go to a show. And I remember doing an interview talking about that. And then Tony was on a podcast a week later. I said, would you not let Lee into the shows and that? And Tony's like, yeah, he's correct. I wouldn't. But then he's like, but you know how things are. And I'm like, Tony, because when you have to remember back then, I talk about even the Grahams, and Tony would defend them, of course, because he runs the shows, and Gretchen would defend them. But then I laughed when Raphael and the IFBB split, and I was watching some of the message boards. Wouldn't have been 24 hours, 48 hours. Gretchen's bagging the Grahams and all this. I'm like, oh, when I said it, I was a liar, just being disgruntled. But now you all agree. And it would have been probably that week my phone rang. It's like, Tony Doherty. I'm like, I haven't heard from Tony for 7 years. And I said, oh, how you going? He's like, good. He goes, Lee, I just wanted to let you know you're more than welcome to come back to my show now and that. And I said, well, why couldn't they come before? And Tony's like, you know how it is. I said, no, I don't know how it is. I said, I've known you since a teenager. I used to do your shows. I said, not even a text or a phone call in 7 years. So that's why now I don't really follow the bodybuilding in Australia, because I'm sure we've got some good athletes out there still. But after that, it's like, I forgive, but I don't forget. It's like, it just shows me people's true backbones when they can just turn their back on you like that. That's why I said in this sport, it amazes me. You get some of the biggest muscular men that act like fucking pussies when it comes to the powers that be just to save their own skin. So
We love that you've got a big opinion, Lee. We really do, and that's why we've got you on here. Mate, if we just go back to those early days competing when you first stepped up in the pro ranks, were you overwhelmed, or did you think, look, I can actually match it with these dudes. I can stand shoulder to shoulder and have a crack?
I always thought everyone was better than me. I remember when I did that in the first Niagara Falls show, I'm on stage and I'm like, oh, fuck, look, there's Milos. I actually met Milos when I was 17 he was in the AAU universe as well when he was young. That's the first time I met Milos, and he eventually turned pro, but I'm on stage. I'm just standing there like, fuck, there's David Durf. There's fucking, Jim Quinn. So I was more in awe of being on stage because, just 20 odd, and now I'm on stage with the guys I looked at in the magazines. So it was just weird to be up there. And even later on in my career, I still felt the same being on stage, because I'm like, even, it's like backstage. I could be backstage and I'm like, I look like shit. And if I got my training partner with me, like, fuck, he looks good. Look at him. They're like, yeah, but look at you. I'm like, yeah, but look at him. It's like, I never saw myself as, and like I said, if you watch those Battle for the Olympia videos, when they're interviewing me, I'll be joking with Mitch, Mitch, don't talk to me. I'm training for 8th place right now, training for 9th place. I never once went into a show saying I'm going to win it. All I did was trained 100%, died 100%. Then I just figured, where I land. And even when I did the Olympia, there was no 212 class. I was in the open. So, me getting into the top 6 a couple of times was great. But back then too, if you got top 10, that qualified you for the following year. So if I had my heart set on 10th, then I get 8, 6, whatever. That's just a bonus to me. So I was never one of those guys. And one time Kevin was backstage like, Lee, how you going to do? I said, Kev, I'm happy to get top 10. Kevin's like, that's not the attitude. You got to go in. You're going to win. I said, Kev, I'm not going to win. I'm fucking realistic, mate. I'm just here to do my best. So I couldn't give a shit. If I get the top 10 and qualify for next year, I'm happy. So, it's good to have that attitude. You want to win a show, but I just went in knowing, listen, I've done all I can do. Once you're on stage, it's the judge's opinion. So I didn't really care what happened after that point.
How was the reception from the other pros, Lee? Young 20-year-old Australian from down under coming in and looking like he is. Did you find that there was any animosity, or was it pretty relaxed?
In the beginning it was, especially with the black guys didn't like the young white guy coming on stage. So if you look at the contest, I always make comments on the token white guy because it was always Flex, Cormier, Paul Dillette, Aaron Baker, and then it would be me, the token white guy. So I'd always make jokes going, International Federation, IFBB, International Federation of Black Bodybuilders. They're like, Lee, you're racist. I'm like, oh, have a fucking laugh, people. You don't take life so serious. But but I was actually in the gym. On stage, backstage, they hated me because like I said, once I've done my training and that's the serious part. Backstage, if you're in shape, you're in shape. And I've always been a class clown at jokester. So backstage, I'd always just fooling around making jokes. And they're like, Lee, take it serious. They'd all get angry. I'm like, oh, excuse me. I'm like, what? If you fucking laugh, you're going to smooth out, are you dumb cunt? It's like, just have a fucking laugh and relax. So, but in the gym, when I first got the golds, that's when I met my training partner. He's like a brother, Kurt Miller. And it's funny because he used to help Flex and all these guys. He won the calendar, very similar structure to Flex. And it was funny because he started training with me. We got on like a house on fire from day one. I lived with him. He lived with me. He come to Australia. And when we're in the gym, we'll be training and Flex and then would look over at him and go, you fucking sell out training with the white boy. I'm like, why the fuck they talking like that? Yeah, so but in the gym, in the beginning, they wouldn't talk to me or acknowledge me until I had to prove myself. It's even Jim Quinn used to train with Billy Smith from American Gladiators. And Kurt goes, oh, why don't you should have lead? They went, And I think it was later on that week, I was doing 180-pound dumbbells. I was just repping them out. And they walk over and go, that's impressive. So it was almost like you had to prove yourself before they would talk to you.
You ended up with that sort of crew as a pretty tight-knit, didn't you? Like you ended up living with Paul Dillette. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, when Paul separated from his wife, he come to live with me. He actually asked Chris, I think, and a few others to take him in, but they wouldn't. So I guess the racist white guy took him in. Yeah, Paul, I just did an interview with Paul not long ago, and we still get on good, Paul and I. So, it's just but some of the other guys, it was so funny too when I used to compete, and I'd sometimes beat him. It was even like, when I came to Australia in 2005 and won the Australian Pro Show, Chris was like, remember that? Chris is telling Tony, fuck this show, I'm never coming back. The judges are racist. I'm like, Chris, they're the same judges that gave you first place the last 3 years you fucking won it. Oh, you only won it because you're Australian. I'm like, well, now you know how I feel when I go to fucking America, don't you? So some of them but the thing with Chris was at the Arnold Classic, he was backstage and I heard him say, oh, I'm going to Australia. That's an easy win. I've won it before. And Chris, he's very relaxed. So after the Arnold, he got relaxed, started a party, and I went back home a week and a half early, got in shape. And I think even Tony said Chris was fucking around with the girls, trying to get a girl to come out. So Chris didn't get here until the day before. So he was holding a little bit of water, which worked to my advantage. So, and I've had it before, even when I won the San Fran and Chris was second and Dexter was third. He was congratulating Dexter, but me, it's like, if one of their boys beats him, it's okay. But if it's me, it's not acceptable. But Chris and I get on great now.
Did you feel like a sense of accomplishment? Like, I don't know, you weren't that into the competitions, but like there's some pretty big scalps. There's some legendary bodybuilders that you took down at the time, or even now. Do you look back and be like, you know what, that was pretty fucking good,
Never. No, it was like when the contest is on, I'd win, and I'm like, okay, I won it. And me, the first after I won, I get my trophy, because I think even on some interviews, I think they said on the Arnold Classic when I was on there, got the TV commentary, and they're like, now from Australia's Lee Priest, and Mike Matarazzo was commentating with the guy from ESPN. They're like, oh yeah, this is Mr. Off Season. You should see him in the off season and blah, blah, blah. And the guy from ESPN said, I spoke to Lee before he went on, and I said, "Is there anything you want to say about me?" And he goes, "Yeah, just don't talk too much because I want to go fucking eat when the show's over." So even so when I used to do shows and win a show, once I'm like, "Oh, thank you, got the trophy," I'm out of there. Because I even remember when I won the show in Australia, Tony's like, "Lee, the VIP people have to take a picture with you on stage," that sort of thing. So when it's over, just come back out. And I remember Andy Cunningham was with me, and I went backstage. I'm getting dressed. I'm getting ready to go in. I'm almost out the door. And he's like, "Lee, you got to come back on stage." I'm like, "Oh, fuck." So I had to take my clothes back off, put my posing trunks on, because once the show's over, that's history. And I've moved on. I'm going to eat. And the next day, I'm back in the gym training.
Wow, wow. And Lee, how do you rate the physique that you displayed sort of in the 90s compared to the early 2000s? Because early 2000s is when you had your most success with wins. But what do you see the difference between your physique in the 90s and then moving into those early years of the 2000s?
Yeah. Probably just maturity as I got older, even though I had early muscle maturity, even in my 20s and that sort of thing, early 2000s. I think it's just maturity as time went on. And to me, it's like like I said, I used growth hormone twice my whole career. That was it. I never did insulin. I was never a big gear user. Like, I've told the truth about my gears from day one. I get called a liar all the time. And it's funny now because I watch a lot of these guys who did take large amounts. They're like, "Oh, I've cut back half and I find I made the same results." I'm like, I've been saying that shit from day one. All of a sudden now it's the latest thing to do. A lot of shit I used to do, a lot of cardio that people do now, they do that. So I said, I'm ahead of my time, but I said, I just did it. Like I said, I never followed a thing where I need to be bigger. I just went in, as long as I looked good. I wasn't like, I got to be better and better and play the size game, because I was never like that. So when I would go to a show, I'd be happy with how I looked. And then people go, "Yeah, but your glutes were soft." I'm like, my posing trunks cover my ass. It's like, but they were hard, but I never had the styrations. I think at the universe, they were probably the hardest. And even when you watch the shows at the IFBB, they were solid, but they weren't styrated. Because I said, when I was training, I look at the magazines and go, "Fuck, look at Platz's legs. I want legs like that. Look at Eddie Robinson's arms. I want like that. Bertel Fox chest and that. Mike Christian's shoulders." I never looked at a magazine and go, "Fuck, I want to have an ass like him." So the ass to me was never a fucking body part. It's like, there's so much emphasis on the ass now. I'm like, what are we, at a fucking strip club? I'm like, as long as it's firm, who gives a shit? And they'll be like, "Yeah, but Lee, your ass wasn't ripped." Because I remember there's actually a video where I think it's the Iron Man with Dexter won. I got second to Dexter. We do a back shot, and actually Dexter turns around, he pats me on the ass, and he's like, just does that. I'm like, "Okay, smart ass." So I turned around, bent down, patted him on the calves, and I went, so I'm like, two can play that game. And I'm like, to me, okay, your ass is ripped, but you're missing calves. How can you win a show missing a body part? So, to me, it was just stupid when they put shows of one from the back. And granted, some guys from the back have phenomenal backs and glutes, but the side chest, side triceps not as good, or the front double bicep isn't as good. So how does this one shot cover, wipe out all the other shots that somebody's great in? So this whole thing shows the one from the back. I'm thinking, what, are the judges really that fucking gay? They just like looking at asses that much?
Potentially.
Oh, we can't wait till they turn around. Turn around, guys. Ooh, here it comes. Why did they ban the moon pose? I used to love the moon pose. Oh.
Now, you touched on one thing there, Lee. You spoke about, and you've been very open, that, PEDs for you never were a big user in terms of dosages. Mate, you must have heard some crazy stories in America. You don't have to name any names, but over the years, you must have heard some really crazy things with PEDs.
Normally rumours, yeah, but even then, because like I said, when Paul Dillette lived with me for almost a year, we never once discussed steroids, what he was taking. I'd see his growth hormone in the fridge, and occasionally, like, he would have the Winstrol shot on the coffee table, so would I. So I think when I saw him, because I actually saw him take the growth, he never took any more than, I think the max I saw was 8. But then the one time, I think he had his last shot, there was 12 in it. He just got rid of it all at once because his last shot. But apart from that, like I said, I'd heard rumours that Dillette's taken this because he's so freaky. And Dillette wasn't a big use at all. And when I tell people that, "Oh, you're lying because he's your friend," I'm like, I'm not fucking lying. I'm trying to tell you guys the truth, because if you are going to make this a career, or you are going to use them, okay, use them, but don't abuse them. Try and use them as safe as you can. And, when I used Cypionate, I didn't go over 400. And there used to be a guy called Trevor Smith from Nuclear Nutrition. I don't know if you remember him. He was like 400 pounds. And he was helping train me one time. He's like, "Lee, imagine if you just use a bit more, you might get bigger." I went, okay, let's try it. So for like 3 to 4 weeks, I went on 800 milligrams of sip. And come the fourth week, I felt shit. I just didn't feel good. So I went back to my 400 and I felt good again. So that's why I always tell young kids now, even. And the thing was, when I first used steroids, like I said, I did Deca by itself, put on 20 pounds. A few months later, I tried Cypionate by itself and then Sus. That way I knew what drugs responded to me well. And that's why I see young kids now, they'll start a cycle and they'll start at 3 or 4 drugs. They're like, oh, the cycle's going good. I'm like, how do you know which drugs are really working for you? You're taking 4, maybe only 2 of them are really responding, your body's responding to. The other 2 is just a waste. So, and then I went to England doing seminars like even 6 years ago, and I'd kids go, what do you take? I took 400 a test, and you can see them go, like, because in their mind, I see it all the time because I said to these young kids, I actually asked 2 of them, what are you taking? One of them was taking 5 grams of test a week. Where, I'm like, where the fuck do you put it? And then another kid was taking 2 grams. I said, you're not going to benefit by taking that much. I said, the only one who's going to benefit is the guy you're fucking buying it off because he's going to get rich. You're buying that much shit. And then, because in their mind, I can just see it. They're taking 2 grams, and half these guys that abuse it don't even look like they barely go to a gym because they think, as you would know, being in the sport so long, everyone thinks there's a fucking secret, there's a magic drug. It's like the only magic thing out there is, like I said, to be a bodybuilder or powerlifter or whatever, yes, you got to be strong physically, but when it comes to this, the strongest thing you're ever going to use is what's up in here. So you got to be smart and just be mentally strong more than physically strong. And these young kids that take 2 grams or more, I can just see their mind going, right, I'm on 2 grams and I look like this. He looks like that taking 400. Bullshit. So that's how they think it. They think to be bigger, you got to take more. And that's just not the case, but you can't tell them. And I remember when I used Tren, I used it a couple of times, like the last 3 to 4 weeks. But I think it's like 2000, before the Night of Champions, I had a shot of Tren. I was in the bathroom, put it in my shoulder. And, I got the cough and that, but this time, I swear it's like someone put a knife through my chest. The pain was that hard and sharp. I'm like, ugh. I'm like, fuck, this is how it's going to end in the bathroom with a needle hanging out my arm. And from that point on, I never touched Tren again. I'd use Masteron or Winstrol or Stanozol, whatever, but never touched Tren again. That's why I'm amazed today when I go on Instagram, anything, the amount of young kids using Tren, this, and then the amounts they take. And then I read comments, oh, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't this. I'm thinking, why are you taking a drug that makes you feel that shitty? If you can't eat properly, then no matter what drug you take isn't going to work well because you're not getting the food in. If you can't, if you're angry all the time and you're not sleeping, then you're not going to train well. So I don't get this obsession when Tren become this big, wonderful drug. And it's like I said, we'd take it 3 to 4 weeks at the end before a show. These kids are on it all year round. I'm like, this is fucking crazy.
In addition to the PEDs, there was a little bit of a dark era, I think, around LA and Gold's Gym, the Bane era. Were you around for the Bane era? Because I know that caught up with like Cormier and I think Sonny got into it for a while.
Yeah, I never used Bane. I never used, what was that other one they used to have? It was like GHB or something that some people used to take that would sell it at MAXS Muscle. No, I never got into that. The only first time I ever used painkillers was when I was back in Australia in 2015. I had that car accident and the doctor put me on Oxycontin. Here's the Oxy, how you feel? I'm still in pain, take another one. And after 5 months of being on them, I'm like, I don't think I need them anymore. And I went to stop them and trying to stop them cold turkey. So I caught up a detox place, the Woodlands in Toronto, just outside Newcastle. They put me in there the same day and I went into detox for like 2.5 weeks and never touched them since. And like, even when I was like training, see, I never really got injured in the gym, but yeah, I'll get little pains here and there, but I might take a Panadol or an Advil. People are like, oh, go get this shot, get a cortisone shot. I'm like, no, because to me, I don't want to mask a pain or hide it, because then if I'm training, if I got the pain there, okay, it's uncomfortable, but if I can feel the pain, I know where my limitations are. People go get all these, Bane or cortisone and all that, cortisol, and then once they put it in there, like, I feel good. You're training because you can't feel the pain, but you're still damaging whatever's damaged. So I've never been a big believer in pain medication. Like now I've had a sciatic nerve that keeps going side to side for the last 6 months and drives me mad, but I just keep, training through it. I'm not taking any pain pills or anything for that. I'm just seeing chiropractors, getting some dry needling done. I got to see a guy at 11:30 today for a massage. And, it's almost like 50, 51 was good. 52 has got to hit 53. And I'm like, fuck, I'm falling apart all at once.
100%, 100%. And so, Lee, you've established yourself, let's say, in the IFBB. You've won a few shows. You've had some top 6 at the Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
2006,
I
you get an
think I
invite to
had
the Sorry?
PDI. Yeah, I think I even had. I think the Ironman was funny. I think I even had 5 runner-ups at the Ironman, and I think the
That's
year I
right.
won it, at the press conference where Lonnie Tippers get us on stage, like, how are you going to do this year, Lee? I'm like, second. And even when they announced me as the winner on the video, you can even see me say, just check that again, just in case, you know.
And so then you step up and you do the PDI, and was it there were 2 different countries you competed in, and then
New York and UK, yeah. And people said
you
too,
New York and
I
UK.
think, yeah, and I won them both. And people like even Sammy Idea, he did the PDI and he went on to the IFBB and won a 212 and that. And then people go, this is a slap in the face. Lee's doing this to the IFBB. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm like, I've been with the IFBB competing for like 14, 15 years. Wayne left. He started a new organization. He was going to start judging, more symmetrical and that again. So I'm like, well, the PDI shows a month before the Olympia. If it's a chance to make extra money, I'll go do it, and did it. And then, of course, got suspended from the IFBB. I said, why am I suspended? Well, you broke the number one rule. I'm like, that's the number one rule? Competing to make money? I said, you've got guys doing gay porn, selling drugs, convicted felons. I said, say if somebody looked up, back in the day we had Kai Green with the grapefruit, remember? And I'm like, if someone said to their mum, I want to be like Kai Green, let's Google him. Oh my God. He's pretty friendly with the grapefruit. If they look up me, what have I done? All I've done is compete. So which looks worse for the IFBB, me or that? So I argued the point. So because I argued the point, they made it 2 year suspension. I'm like, I don't care. I can get fat for 2 years. So, and then in 2010, I got my pro card back. That's when I moved back home. I think that video came up online not long ago where I took my shirt off on Tony's show.
Yes.
And then I was going to compete, but then I'm like, you know what? My grandfather passed away. And I pretty much, because when I was going to move home, he was going to move in with me. And because when I was younger, he always used to do cardio with me. And he's pretty much the one that, would come to the gym with me all the time. There'll be days when I was 14, 15, now in Australia, getting ready for a show, it'd be fucking winter time, pissing down rain. Because we'd always go 20K bike ride at 4 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, fuck yeah, it's raining. He won't be coming. So I lay in bed, all of a sudden, fucking knock on the bedroom window. I'm like, I look out, here he is with his raincoat on the bike. He's like, let's go. I'm like, you stupid old fucking bastard. So I'd go out. So my plan was to, do it. He was going to live with me and just get back into that. Because he passed away, then I pretty much just lost the fire to compete again. So for years I didn't. And then it was, like I said, so I just let my IFBB pro card go because I wasn't going to compete anymore. And Romano and I had that shotgun VPX show when I was sponsored with VPX. And we talked about the good and the bad of bodybuilding. And I guess they didn't like that I talked about the bad too much. And then Harris Kagan, who was the secretary of the IFBB at the time, I got a letter that suspended me for life. So I'm like, well, that's an accomplishment. Not everyone gets those.
And
But
is
then
your,
now,
your
I think
main point?
because they're separated now, I am allowed back. I remember even at the time, like I said, MD dumped me because IFBB told him to dump me, and they still wanted to cover shows. They wanted to have athletes they could interview. And if you've got Lee on board, you're not going to get that. And then even Dave Palumbo got rid of me on his podcast. And I remember he called me up one day and goes, okay, I spoke to Jim and Steve, and they said they're willing to have you back on the show and that, but we had to record a show first, and he had to send it to them to get the approval that I was okay to come back. So I just find it funny. And even after I won the Universe, my friend Aaron Lambo, like 2014, I went to England to do a big tour. And I forget his name. He used to run the UK BFF, the IFBB in the UK. He called up gyms. If you have Lee Priest at your gym, your competitors won't do well. 2 gyms cancelled because the people that owned the gyms were UK BFF judges. So to keep their judging and in good standing, sorry, Lee, we can't have you. Even Zach Khan was going to come to one of my seminars. Bill Tierney was his name that ran it at the time. And he's like, Zach Khan, if you go see Lee and we see you there, you won't place high in a pro show again. I'm like, it's 2014. I haven't competed with the IFBB since 2006. Fucking get over it. I'm like, it's just so crazy how shit would still carry on. I'm like, and the thing was, when I spoke up, it's like at that 2002 press conference you can find on YouTube. I was speaking up about how the athletes were treated. They weren't getting enough money. you call it the Mr. Olympia, the Super Bowl. I said, well, guys out of 10th place should still get money. And that's when I handed Wayne the letter at the press conference. It's on YouTube. And from that day on, they paid everyone $2,000. So I was never against, like I said, I never singled a person out like Jim Manuel. I respect Jim Manuel. If it wasn't him, I wouldn't have got my pro card. So I was talking about the organization in the whole and how they treated the athletes. And I'm like, look, I understand promoters have to make money. The IFBB has to make money. But the athletes, they're the ones that are bringing the people in. Just treat them with a bit more respect. And I remember at one show we're at, when you're dehydrated, it's funny because, when you get ready for a show and you're backstage at a show, the smallest thing is like a big thing. In everyday life, if you weren't dieted down for a show, you wouldn't even give a fuck. But, we're dehydrated. You get ready. There wasn't even bottled water back there. I'm like, what? There's no water? I said, this is bullshit. And they go and tell Wayne, Lee's being fucking difficult backstage. I'm like, what? Asking for fucking water is difficult. So it's just little things like that where they're like, Lee's a troublemaker, Lee's this. I'm like, what? Just speaking up or telling the truth makes me the bad guy. So I never understood the whole thing. But the athletes would annoy me because I'd do an interview and they'll say, we agree with what you're saying, Lee. I'm like, then stand with me. Oh, we can't do that. We'll get in trouble. I'm like, no, if I do it, I get in trouble. If we all stand together, what are they going to do? Suspend all of us? Then they won't have a fucking contest. I said, we have the power. Even today, I spoke to a lot of girls because when I judged NABBA for a while, that pose they turn around, put their hands here and push their ass out. All you see is their asshole and their vagina. I'm like, what are we looking at here? It's like, and a lot of girls say they hate doing that pose. I'm like, well, if you hate doing it, tell the organization you don't want to do it. Because I remember like when I made fun of that moon pose, when men used to bend over and show their hamstrings, they banned that because they said it wasn't good, the good look. But yet this pose is good on the girls. The fitness girls had to do that where they hold themselves off the ground and spread their legs to the judges. That pose is still going ahead. So it's weird that men got the moon pose banned, but anything with the girls bending over, legs spread is still allowed in the IFBB. So it's crazy. And like I said, if you don't like it, stand up against it. I said, if one or two do it, we get suspended. If everyone does it, they can't suspend all of us. And I used to tell the guys, I said, before the Mr. Olympia, you have the press conference. If we just want little demands, nothing crazy, like I said, because the Mr. Olympia, the tickets are sold out. You got sponsors from all over the world. People have come from all over the world. If the night before, if we just said, if we don't get this or that, we're not walking on stage tomorrow, they're not going to cancel the fucking show. So the athletes have all the power in their hands to make changes, but they're too scared to rock the boat because their egos are too big. Or if I say something, I won't place again or this and that. And, when I was with Adela, she was under contract with JM. That's Jim Mannion's son. And the way he used to talk to her on the phone and abuse her, she'd be in tears. I'm like, why do you keep signing contracts with him? Or if I don't, I won't place well. And there used to be a girl, Teresa Hessler, was with him. She left, never made top 10 again when she used to be top 3. And then JM, you remember when it came out about those porn sites? That was all true because Adela was on some of them. He'd have his girls. One was Alluring Fitness and one was something else. They were based out of Canada. But his girls had to do these naked types of shots. If they didn't, they'd get in trouble. So all the shit I saw that would go on, I'd speak out against, and I was the bad guy. So I never understood it. Because I remember people go, Lee, why'd you always tell the truth? Even on my latest documentary, Rebel with a Cause, it's on Prime right now or Vimeo. They ask everyone, Jay Cutler, Flex Lewis, Dennis James, like this, Paul Dillette. They're like, if Lee had kept his mouth shut, would he have placed higher? And even Flex Lewis is like, yes, if Lee had kept his fucking mouth shut, he would have placed a lot higher. And even Jay Cutler said, he's like, I respect Lee. Jay's funny. He's like, I love Lee and that. He goes, but back in the day, if we associated with Lee, it would have looked bad for us type thing. So I'm just like, but even Jay says he would have placed higher. So I'm like, so you're all admitting there was politics in the sport. Is that it? So, but like I said, I never complained about my placings because as much as they didn't like me and I did well, I was happy to place where I placed. So like I said, I never had a problem with my placings or anything else. I just had a problem with the way the athletes were treated. And that's what I spoke out against.
Yeah, well, most of those athletes obviously didn't want to impact their livelihood. You would have, I assume, taken a financial hit of sorts at the time, Lee.
Well,
so
I did.
Yeah. So what were you doing between that sort of 2006 and 2013? Like you still had sponsorships going, but what were you doing instead of earning the bodybuilding dollars?
We didn't have OnlyFans then, so I wasn't doing that. And who wants to sit there and watch me beat off on a fucking camera? So, well, back in my heyday, I was probably making with my contracts from supplement companies, muscle development, I was probably making close to 18,000 a month. And for back then, that was pretty good money. You can make money doing other things as well, like seminars and appearances, but just contracts alone was 18. And then when, that happened and they got rid of me, I went down to about 4,000 a month. And, that's a big drop. But it's like people said, aren't you upset or this and that? I said, yeah, I am. But I said, listen, I love training. Okay. I'm making 4,000 a month. I can still go to the gym. I can still pay my rent. I still got food on the table. So I'm fine. I had jobs before servicing fire equipment, cleaning houses at night. I used to clean factories until 3 in the morning. So getting a normal job again never scared me. So it wasn't like this was my only option. So, but luckily I still had one or two contracts where it allowed me to still train and do what I did. And then eventually I got other contracts and I got with Black Skull, and Black Skull pretty much said, actually, IFBB said to Black Skull, Lee can't be here and that. And Black Skull pretty much told him, Lee's going to be there or we're pulling the sponsorship money. So that I was allowed to start going to the IFBB Arnold in Brazil and that. And that's how I pretty much got back into the IFBB in America, because they didn't back down. They said, no, Lee's our athlete. He's coming. So that was good. But yeah, then, as I said, I never got into bodybuilding. Well, you never really get into bodybuilding for money, that's for sure. I think people can make more money on YouTube these days than competing. So it's like when I think I lost the contract with ProLab because ProLab got brought out by Natrol. I forget what that was, but they were going in a different direction. So at the time, it was like mid-year, and contracts normally signed at the end of the year. So MuscleTech comes and goes, okay, Lee, here's a contract, a 3-year deal. We can only give you this much right now, but near the end of the year, if you do well, when we re-sign, we'll up it. So I'm like, that's fine. So I did well, placed well at shows. I think I won a show. When it come time for the contract renewal, they're like, nope, you're going to get that amount. I said, wait a minute. You said, they're like, do you have it in writing? I'm like, oh, is that how you play it? Is it? Because I'm still old school. If you give me your word and you shake my hand, I'll take that over some signed piece of paper. But Americans, they like the signed piece of paper. And then I was doing a seminar for him one day and someone goes, Lee, that new product, what's it really like? You say it's the best ever. I'm like, what product? They're like, the one you're in the ad for. I'm like, I don't know. So once it's over, I call up MuscleTech. I say, what's this new product I'm in? They're like, oh, this one. I said, well, don't you think you should tell me or send me the fucking product before I say it's the best product ever? So like I said, I had a 3-year deal. After 8 months, I said, I want out of the deal. They're like, we'll take you to court. I love that song in the background. I posted it once. And then I said, if you take me to court, take me to court, I'll just say your product's still shit. I don't care. So they let me out of the contract, and Dexter's like, you lucky bastard, how'd you get out? Because, like I said, because I'm not money orientated, I'm not one of those people that has to be like, I'm not going to lie to people just to make money. So if I say this product's good, it's good. I've been on Instagram that say a product's good. They're like, Lee, you're just saying this because they pay you. I'm like, this company doesn't pay me. I'm saying it because I like the product. I'm not sponsored by them. So, because to me, growing up, I knew what it was like to buy protein powder. You have to get money off your mother, or even if you're married, I had a girlfriend. Oh, you going wasting money on that again type thing. So I'm thinking, if I'm saying a product's good and someone's going to spend their hard-earned money on it, it's got to be good. I'm not going to say this is good. You spend your money and go, this is fucking shit. I'm never going to believe a word Lee says again. So I said, you're not going to buy my integrity or just buy me to say something. So I was never like that. So I lost a lot of contracts just from being truthful, because even some that hate me, they might have 10 products. I'll say, in an interview, that one's shit. You can't say that, we sponsor you. I'm like, yeah, I said, the other 9 products are good. That one's shit. I'm not going to lie and say it's good. If it's shit, I've heard it's shit from other people, maybe reformulate or something, but I'm not going to lie to like, oh, okay. So I said, I'm not one of those people that's just going to lie to appease the company that sponsors me.
Yeah, I would imagine that authenticity would probably generate sales. But Lee, what do you think about the sort of financial landscape of bodybuilding now, where the sponsorships don't necessarily go to the top guys as competitors? It goes to the most influential on social media. Are you on board with this? Yeah, I'm interested in your thoughts.
Well, I understand it, but I find it, it's like when I started seeing Jake Paul get all these fights with these big name boxers like Tyson and that, because he's got all this following. And I'd think to myself, now imagine if you're a boxer, like if I was a boxer and I started boxing at 12, 13, and I've worked my way all the way up doing tons of fights, I'm thinking, I'm never going to get a payday like that or a shot at something like that because I don't have the following. I see it now where this young kid have a following, or even like a young kid who's 24, he's got 1 million followers. And I look at him, I'm like, he doesn't even look like he trains. I'm thinking, what is it that these people look at when they see him? Is it because they got lots of gay people following him because they're a young looking kid with blonde hair? But I'm like, this bro science. I never got into bro science. So I'm like, training's basic, keep it basic. People try and spice it up, put big words on it, come up. The wheel's not broken. You don't need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to training, when it comes to diet. Stick to the basics. You can't go wrong. I think people try and make it more scientific or whatever. What people go, Lee, what's your bro split? I'm like, what is a fucking bro split? Or push pull days? I'm like, what the fuck's a push pull day? Or when it came to blasting and cruising, I'm like, we'll do a course and it would come off. There was no cruising. There was no blasting. When you're off, you're off. That's it. So it's funny now because I think, when they talk about the old days and the new days, conditioning, I said, I think maybe there's some good guys conditioned today, Nick Walker, Hardy, and there's a few out there. But in my day, the whole top 10 at Olympia was pretty much in condition because like back then you had to come in shape because contracts used to be 2 or 3 years, but then they went down to 1 year. So come the Olympia time, it's almost renewal time. So you had to look good in all your shows. Hopefully your contract's going to get renewed. The better you're placed, you'd get more money. The better you looked, you get more magazine covers or in the magazines or a magazine contract. The better you did, you'd get asked to go do seminars and posing exhibitions, which a lot of them don't exist today. So the only way of making money was you had to come in looking your very best. So I think that fire and drive to look good come in. So I think if I was competing today and I had a YouTube channel, let's just say every month I'm making 50K off a YouTube channel, I'd probably go into a show, go, yeah, I look okay, but if I win or I don't, if it doesn't matter. If I win a show, what? I get 20 grand, I'm making 50 a month. So I think that desire and drive to actually go in looking your best, unless you just really want to win the show, isn't there anymore because they're making so much money on the side, whereas we didn't have that back in the day. Yeah, I think a few guys might have had the gay for pay back in the day. And I've even said to this day, I'm very upset by that because I figured, when I didn't have my tattoos, I was young, blonde hair, blue-eyed guy. I said, I didn't once get fucking approached to do gay for fucking pay. So I'm very upset by this. I felt like, what was wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Like that pretty girl at the bar and those guys talking to us like, what's wrong with me?
So is it a better world now, Lee, with social media and the fitness industry and bodybuilding, or has it gone downhill, or is it more opportunity for people?
I think it's gone downhill a bit. It's a double-edged sword. It's like, I don't like the 212 class or the classic class because, to me, bodybuilding, you had a lot of classic physiques in the open back in the day. A lot of guys' stomachs got big and we got the letter saying if your stomach's too big, we're going to mark you down. But they didn't mark anyone down. So the guys winning the shows had big stomachs. Everyone else is like, oh, we're going to get big. So they did. Then it got too out of hand. So they made a new classic class. Same with the women. Kathy, when I was married to her, they were told you have to lose 20% of your muscle. So she did, a lot of other girls did. Who won? The big girls. So they said, fuck it, we'll get big again. Then they got too big. They made the physique class. And it's like now, bikini, it's got too big. Now they're making this fit model class. We want you to look like how bikini used to look. I'm like, well, if you stuck to the judging criteria, it would never got out of hand. And look at men's physique now. They're starting to get big. So they'll probably make a new class there. But to me, men's physique, classic, all these bikini, they should be in the amateurs. They can still make just as much money in amateurs because in the amateur, they have to pay an entry fee. They can do crossover divisions to get more money. They can do how many amateur shows a year they want. Once you turn pro, because people go, it's to make money. Yeah, but once you turn pro, you only pay once a year for your pro card. That's all they're getting out of you. So to me, it was like, yes, I was like men's physique when I was younger. And then as I got bigger, I went through I would look like a classic physique. And then I said, then I got my big boy pants and I became an open bodybuilder. So it's like, to me, they're just dumbing it down to get more people into it, where this fit model class now, it's like girls who've been training a month go into a show and get their pro card. It's like, okay, bikini's got too big. They can still do bikini novice if they want to get their feet wet. It's like, so when you get to the Olympia, it still should just be to open Mr. Olympia. And 212, I said, I didn't have it. And I said, you don't need it. People go, well, if they don't have it, people won't compete. I said, if you love competing, you're still going to compete. Look at Hardy. He was 212. Now he became Mr. Olympia. Derek was 212, became Mr. Olympia. Bonik was in the 212. And to me, these classes, I think, hold people back. Look at Flex Lewis. He won it 7 times. If he only won it 2 or 3 times and just let himself grow, I think he could have easily won an Open Olympia. So it's like these classes seem to hold people back. I know Urs is now going to the Open. Bumstead did one Open, but Bumstead probably could have done an Open 4 or 5 years ago and did well, but they hold themselves back. So it's almost like they're just making, it's almost, I call it the Down syndrome classes. They're just making classes so everyone can compete. Nothing against Down syndrome people, even though I always had a question about Down syndrome. No matter where you go in the world, they're different families, but they all look alike. Like you get twins, identical twins from the same mother and dad, they look alike. But I could see a Down syndrome person in Australia and I see his twin brother in America and they're not even related. I'm like, how's that possible? That's just the question I want to know. If anyone's out there as a doctor, is it just their genes? That's a serious question. Haven't you noticed that? You
It
see them on
is. It
TV, they
is.
look alike, like they're related. It's like it must just be the genes, but yet they're from different, even like a Chinese Down syndrome looks like an American Down syndrome, just with the different hair and
Very
eyes, but they
true.
still look the same. I don't know why. It's just a question I put out there. Not trying to be controversial, but these are things that go on in my head some days. Yeah, but so with
We're
all those other
glad to have you here,
classes,
Lee. We're glad to have your opinion, mate. We really are.
just yeah, but
Hey,
all these other classes, I just don't think they're needed because I think they actually hold people back. I like it because even I think Ron Harris was saying too, the open people go, oh, the classic's going to overtake it. It's like, no, it's not. They're popular, but he even said when he used to do the pay-per-views and that, say it's the Open Mr. Olympia, you'll have like 5,000 watching an open class. As soon as the women come on, it'll drop to 700, or the men's physique, it might go up to 900. So the men are still the draw card. And all these guys, like I said, if you're going to compete 212 classic physique, you can still do it into amateurs. And as you slowly grow, then you can move into the open. And then I think too, just not giving out as many pro cards, because before you see a USA lineup, it would have Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, who else was in it? There's quite a few one year, Tom Prince, but only one gets a pro card. So what do the others do? They have to wait a whole year, another year of training till they're ready. Whereas now, these guys are only been training not so long. They get second, get a pro card, and you see them do interviews. So when's your first pro show? I'm going to take at least 2 to 3 years off to put more size on. Yeah, because you weren't fucking ready. Guys back then, when they got their pro card, they were ready to stand on a pro stage. And, we didn't have internet. We had like Get Big boards back in the day. I think it's still going on bodybuilding.com. Yeah, you go on there and get ripped a new asshole. Or I think I was on the Deadpool list for 15 years. He's bulked up again. He's going to have a heart attack. He's going to die. So but it's like, everyone today, nothing against them. Look, I'm all for everyone training. It's a great thing to do. You keep it as healthy as you can. If you use drugs still, it's like even the small amount I use, I think, okay, that's healthy, but maybe 400 isn't even healthy, but it just sounds healthier than a gram or 2 grams. So, it can be a healthy sport if done correctly. And that's why I've always said now, even guys should compete more because back then we competed a lot more. And people go, but it's unhealthy to compete. I'm like, is it really? I said, because when you compete, you're eating nothing but clean food. You're doing cardio. You're active. You're taking a bit of gear, of course, but then off season, you're taking a whole shit ton of gear. You're not doing cardio. You're probably eating everything. You put 50, 60 pounds on overweight. So which is more unhealthy because of competing and that. So it's just changed a lot now. And like I said, with the internet, like I said, now every IFBB pro such and such, it's like back in our day, you'd remember Scott and Luke, that if you saw someone in the gym, you're like, fuck, he must be a pro. He's got to be you knew it. These days, people come over, hi, I'm a pro. I'm like, at what? Fucking 10 pin bowling? Darts? What? No, I'm a pro. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like when you're going to tell someone you're a fucking pro, then, it's time to look in the mirror.
Lee, have you
Yeah.
done all the health checks post career? Like, have you done all
Yep.
the calcium score and everything, and you got away unscathed?
Every year I still do it. So yeah, it's like, because in 2002, I had that viral cardiomyopathy type thing. And I thought, okay, this is the end, but all cleared up. But ever since then, because I got the heart checks, I was probably one of the first to do it. Ever since probably 2004, had my heart checked every year, had my blood done. I didn't get my blood done every 6 months because even I'd get it done off season because I was eating so much fucking shit food and 80 pounds overweight. Then I'll get it done contest time. And I still do the same now. And none of it's changed. Pretty much, we have what's called, any athlete has it, athlete's heart, where if you're training or whatever, you have an enlarged heart. So you go to a normal doctor, they'll be like, oh my God, or even a normal doctor sometimes, if you eat enough protein or you break the muscle down, your creatinine level is going to be higher and your liver thing's going to be, oh my God, your liver enzymes are going to, but to an actual sports doctor, they can tell, okay, you're an athlete, you do this, they're going to be different to the average person. So I always get things done. And right now I'm actually wearing something for my heart because I get it. I think my next one I get in 6 months, but in between, sometimes I'm like, I just want to, as you get older in your mind and I see people dying, I'm like, am I next? So, and that's my word. My head's the worst thing, I get a pain in my stomach. I get my phone out. I'm like, let me look. And my wife goes, don't look. I'm like, honey, I got bowel cancer. Bowel cancer. I got pain. Everything on Google's fucking cancer or something. So one day I was like
Yes.
doing something like, because I said I still, I like the last 2 years I've just been doing boxing for cardio because, I've done so much treadmill and that. And I remember the first time I went to see this guy, this was probably 5 years ago. I went to see Neville Short. He trained a lot of Olympic boxers and that. I just go, like, I don't want to go to a boxing gym because I figured going to a boxing gym with muscles and tattoos, I'd be like, who's he fucking think he is? Come on. So I just go to a private place where I just hit the pads, did some sparring and that. I remember going in there going, I do stepper, I do treadmill. This will be fucking easy. After like 3 rounds on the pads, I'm like, fuck this shit. It's like a whole different type. I got nothing but respect for people that get into boxing ring or UFC fighters because then when you're sparring as well, your adrenaline goes up, so your breathing goes up. And when you're breathing hard and you do cop a good punch, it's like, how long have I got? It's like, fuck, another minute. It's like, I'd always joke with the guy I'm sparring with, I'll be saying quietly through my mouth guard, knock me out. I want to take a nap. Knock me out. So even though I do all that sometimes, I get a bit paranoid. I'm like getting older. So right now I have this little harp bug on. Look, it looks like a ladybug. Look, isn't it cute? You wear that for 24 hours. I mean, 28 days you wear this. It's connected there and there. And it just monitors your heart. So I just want to monitor it while I'm training, while I'm doing boxing, just to see where the levels are. So that way, even my wife goes, it's going to come back perfectly fine. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not a doctor. If the doctor tells me, then I'm okay.
Yeah, it sounds like you've matured a bit, Lee, because I remember hearing a story when you had that heart condition in the early 2000s where you came back and tested it out with like 1,000-pound leg press for 20 reps or
Yeah,
something.
that was the one. Yeah, that was the one where I had the cardiomyopathy because would have been here 2002 because I was with Kathy and I was actually Sandy Rinaldi was one of the head nurses at the Santa Monica Hospital. She goes, "Oh, Lee, what are you doing?" And this was just before the Ironman. And I was in the room and this nurse come in and she's like, "Oh, yeah." So she looked at my chart. She goes, "Oh, you're going to die." I went, "What? I'm going to, I'm going to die." And as she puts down, I still laugh to this day. She put down this tray of food and it was like, just like the hospital food, a bit of chicken and vegetables and that. And there's a piece of chocolate cake. She goes, "Well, here's your food, but don't eat the cake because you got to do more tests and the sugars and that might set the test off." I'm like, okay. She leaves the room. I'm eating, I'm fucking into the cake. She walks in. She goes, "I told you not to eat that cake." And I looked at her. I said, "You also told me I'm going to fucking die. So if I'm going to fucking die, I'm going to die eating chocolate cake, not fucking chicken." And then because I said that, after a while, I said, "Oh, it's just a viral one. They gave me this medication." After I felt okay, so I went to the gym. I'm like, am I okay? So I remember being at World Gym. I loaded the leg press up to like 1,000 pounds. I'm like, I'm going to do as many reps as I can. I said, if this doesn't kill me, nothing will. I'll be okay. So I did the set. I'm like, all right, I'm good.
Well, Lee, we do thank you for your time. We might have to wrap it up here, but just one final question. And Lee, I've always wanted to ask you this. 97, you beat Ronnie. 98, he wins the Mr. Olympia. Mate, back then, did you see this coming in any way, shape, or form, or was it completely out of the blue? What was your opinion on it?
And I actually still laugh because even Ronnie today tells the story how he's going to retire. He goes, Lee Priest beat me 5 times in
Yep.
1 year. I'm like, well, technically it was 7, but I don't want to remind him about the other 2. I was, I was actually meant to do a seminar with Ronnie. I was in Amsterdam a month ago. I was meant to do a seminar with Ronnie, but Ronnie went to hospital. So I sent him a video going, Ronnie, I know it's been a long time. We haven't been on stage together, but to put yourself in hospital so you don't have to come on stage with me again. I said, you're going a bit far, mate. So, but yeah, but even back then, I saw it coming because 97 on the last Grand Prix show, we all had enough of dieting and Ronnie was getting harder and harder. In the last Russian show is when he beat Kevin. And I saw how he looked then, so I could tell pretty much he was going to get his ass in the gear and come back type thing. So I saw pretty much after that last Grand Prix in Russia that he won, I sort of saw it coming then. And yeah, I don't think Flex did because I think Flex thought he was going to be the heir apparent. And the thing with Flex was when Flex won the Arnold when he's 218, that's the best he ever looked, and he even says that. But he tried to play that size game. I think if Flex had stayed around the 218, the low 220s, he probably could have beat Ronnie, even though Ronnie was just out of this world at that 98 with the rip shredded. But of course, Flex started playing the size game. Look, Flex has one of the best symmetries out there, but he always looked like he had that little bit of water from that point on. He never got that real dryness. He was cut and hard, but he never got that real grainy look again. So I think that was Flex's downfall, trying to play the size game with Ronnie. That's why I tell people, just be the best you can be. You know, when people goes, Lee, I'd like to be like you. I say, why be like me? Be the best you can be and have people maybe want to be like you. Just be your best, play to your own strengths. Because if you try and think like I got to look like this to be like him, it's like generally you're going to fuck your own body up. You're going to do something stupid. So just be the best you can be. And like I said, just train hard and train smart. And there's a lot of shit on the internet. Just take it with a grain of salt half the time. And like I said, just have a good group of people around you, because when you get ready for shows, that's when your mind, like I said, I never had a coach. And people have coaches. And I asked Paul one day when he was living with me, why do you have Chad? Because I remember I was in the fridge. I'm like, what will I have for lunch? Chicken or steak? Paul goes, look at the fridge. I look at the fridge. He goes, that's why I have Chad. I don't have to think about it. I'm fucking lazy. He tells me what to eat. So, really, you can do it yourself because it's so basic. Because, like, if I didn't know Scott and Scott come to me, he goes, Luke, could you get me ready for a show? I'm like, okay, what foods do you like? I'd do Scott up a diet. Looking at Scott, I'm like, well, he knows how to train. I don't really have to help him with training. And if he did ask about drugs, I'd say, well, this is what I've done. Go ahead, try it. And then from that point on, I'm just experimenting with Scott. Okay, add this, take that out, do this. And you can do that yourself, taking notes, as long as you've got a good support team around you when you need it, because we all know those last few weeks, your head goes, if I do this, I can be a little bit better. If I cut this out, maybe I can be a little bit better. And that's why I never did peak weeks. I never carb loaded. My diet from week 1 to week 16 was exactly the same. The drugs would be exactly the same. I'll probably cut them out as the week gets close to the show, so I don't have any big lumps from an injection. But this is where guys are seem to fuck up, because if they're doing a 16-week prep, week 1 to 15, they train the same, they eat the same, the drugs, that last 1 week to go, they stop training. Some change their foods, they change the drugs. So when you're that finely tuned, any little change you make is a big change. So it's too big of a risk. All I did was slowly cut my water out, put tan on and pumped up before a show. That was it. I never did any of the carb loading. And like I said, just have a good team of people around you. They can be honest, have a good, honest eye. If you look shit, tell them they look shit. Don't blow smoke up their ass type thing. So like I said, it's a fun sport, but I said, just people need to have more faith in themselves. And like I said, don't believe half the shit you see on the internet and stuff like that. So don't try and please anybody. Just try to be the best you can be.
That's some
Luke,
great
Luke,
advice.
you snuck in one last question. I have to know, Lee, the best bodybuilder between 90, 95 kilos, you, Sean Ray, Keon, and Flex Lewis. Where are they placing if they all hit the stage at their all-time best?
I'd probably go, it would be hard. First, I'd have to toss up between Keon and Sean, because Keon's got the better symmetry. I'd probably put myself last. So I'd probably go Keon, Sean, Flex myself, something like that, maybe. It's hard to say because, for years I was always, how would Flex and Lee do if they went up together? That we always have fun with it. And now I saw a few things going up with Keon and Lee. How would they have done? So, different eras, different time. You only got to be as good as the guy you're up against at the time. So, but, Sean Ray would be up there because always, Sean and I have our clashes now and then, but as a bodybuilder, you can't fault him. And I think 96, he maybe could have won an Olympia and stuff like that, because something came up he was on a podcast. I think he's on Muscle Talk, the Australian. I don't know what it was on, but it came up one of his posing routines, and you actually forget how good his physique was when you see Sean and that. So a bit different. But like I said, Keon to me, like, yes, he's doing the 212 again, which is good. But like I said, I think it's holding him back. I know he'll eventually go to the Open, but I even think Keon this year, if he was in the Open, shredded with that symmetry, he'd be top 6 at the Olympia now. So I think eventually he will win it. But that's what I mean. It's just holding people back. And that's what I said, Flex winning it 7 times. If Flex only had a one at 3 or 4, then went to the Open, I think he could have won an Open. And then, like I said, Keon now, easy, I think, top 5 or 6 condition, because I said, no one's got his symmetry. It's almost like a Flex Wheeler symmetry on a shorter frame. And if he gets that conditioning, that's why I always tell people too, conditioning's such a big thing. They all go for size, but when I beat Chris at the San Francisco, I was 199, and people go, what'd you weigh? I said, what do you think I weighed? Oh, 230, 235. And I always say to Chris, I said, how much did you weigh, Chris? He's like, 260. I said, oh, you got beat by a guy under 200. He's like, fuck you, fuck off. I'd always rub it into him. So if you're on stage, it's like, look at Sean Clarita. He's conditioning. He's a short guy. He weighs like what in the 180s, but you wouldn't know that because he's conditioning and the round full muscle bellies. He holds his own when he beat Sergio and Regan that time. And I think Keon's the same. If Keon had Sean Clarita's conditioning, he could be top 3 at the Olympia this year. And I know he wants to do the 212, but to me, doing the Open, he'd get more hype. He'd probably get more respect. I know he's got respect now, but I think it would be like the big talking point if Keon, because even I know Samson was off doing his clean out phase, but even when Keon guest posed with Samson side by side and Samson was heavier than him, yeah, still looking at Keon. It's almost like when Derek did that Pittsburgh show before he won the Olympia. Everyone's looking at Derek that time going, oh, is he going to go to the Open? Is he going to do this? So, yeah, I think in another year or two, we'll see Keon in the Open and he'll win it. So, but at the moment, like I said, I'll probably go Keon, Sean, Flex myself.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. Well, Lee, listen, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Mate, before you go, do you have any sponsors, or if people want to reach you for business inquiries, what's the best way?
I've actually just started a Lee Priest Unfiltered. It's like a thing you join up for a month. It's like $15.99 a month, or then it was down to $9.99 just for like a special where I just put up some of my old training stuff. I'm filming training stuff, put up some old diets and all that sort of stuff. And then I do 1 or 2 Zoom calls a month with everybody on there and just like that. But I just keep it very basic because people even wrote to me, go, oh, we really like this approach. It's basic. I'm like, well, that's how it should be. I remember when I did a diet for Jake Nicolopoulos when he wanted me to help him. And I'm like, I wrote out his diet and training, and he even said to me once, what about the gear? I said, Jake, I only know what I use. And I sent him my gear cycle. I said, try this. He wrote back, he goes, are you fucking with me? I'm like, why, Jake? He goes, that's not enough. You don't even have growth hormone. I'm like, I said, if you're going to trust me with the diet and training, trust me with that. So that's when he went over and he won the worlds. And he's like, Lee, that's the best I've ever felt and the best I ever looked. And he was using half the amount. So, and then there was another guy in Western Australia, I forget his name. I sent him a similar one. He got so mad at me. He's like, I paid for this. This is so fucking basic. I could have done it myself. I'm like, then do it yourself. I'll give you a refund. Don't worry about it. Fuck it. But I thought it would have been. I said, what do you want? I said, there's no magic fucking thing here, mate. There's no, well, you were in America. I thought you would have known more when it comes to this. I'm like, mate, there's no secret. It's just fucking basic. And if you stick to the basics, you can't go wrong. But I've got the Unfiltered. I'm sponsored like by Gym Reapers and stuff like that. I'm also do a IFBB AMA. It's like a podcast. They have an Instagram channel as well where there's myself, Chris Tuttle, Jordan, who's been competing. I think he's on there. James Hollingsed's on there. There's quite a few pros on there. I forget names now. Antoine Vallier's on there, but it's a whole heap of pros where you can ask us questions. We put out videos weekly and monthly. There's a couple of podcasts on there. So it's really good, IFBB AMA. So with them, it's always a good channel to watch. And plus, I've got my own I think it's Lee Priest Official 72. I don't even know my own Instagram, but I just put shit up there. But most of the shit I put up there is just to stir people. I'll just put up something about Palestine, Israel, or something and just watch people argue amongst themselves. Put myself wearing a Trump t-shirt just to set people off. Then I just sit
I like
back and
how
watch
you left out your OnlyFans account, Lee. You didn't mention your OnlyFans account, mate. Where's that? Where can we find that?
Hey, if I was young and still good looking, I would have one, but I don't have one. I've always said, if I was a hot looking girl, I'd be the biggest slut out there. I'd be making money using my pussy to fucking. Well, look at him. I remember when I was at, here's a quick story. I was at the expo once in Vegas. A couple of call girls there my mate knew. They were pretty, but yet they were probably the most respectful girls I knew. They owned free homes. They owned cars. And I remember one of the fitness girls at the booth overheard. She's like, oh, they're sluts. I'm like, why? Because they're call girls. They said the high-class prostitutes, but they own their homes and cars. I said, you're here at a booth. You're probably going to go get fucked up at an after party and fuck a guy for a tub of protein or to get on a cover. I said, who's the fucking whore, them or you? So I said, and how many girls go out drink and go home with a guy and spread their legs for a drink? I said, if you're going to spread your legs, at least get a fucking something decent out of it. I said, I'd be the biggest whore out there if I was pretty.
Well, it's a great way to wrap up this interview, Lee. Thank you very much for your time, mate. We really appreciate it. We'd love to get you back in the future as well. So thank you very much.
Sure. You're welcome.
And thanks to MAXS Protein for sponsoring Muscle TV. If you're liking this content, please leave a thumbs up.
MAXS? I'm looking for a protein
MAXS is looking. Lee Priest, we'll pass it on, Lee. Don't you worry. I'll pass it on.
We can do it. We're going to do it old retirement range for the old people.
Sounds good. I think we might have to join you there as well.
I still got it, Max.
No, thanks, Lee. Thank you. Thanks, Scotty. And we'll be back with Muscle TV next week with a brand new podcast.
There's no cure for this one.